Good afternoon. Well, this is my first video, as you can probably tell, because I'm looking down at my notes here. I am confused. Well, let me start out by saying I want to give big shout outs to Mr. Jericho Green out on the West Coast, keeping it real. I love you, man. I love I love what you're putting down. I just love it. I want to give another shout out to Caitlin Bennett at Liberty Hangout. And I want to apologize for a comment that I'd left in one of her videos about the stimulus package because I had looked it up, couldn't find it, left a comment, then I found it, wrote some stuff down from it, and then I lost it. Then I found it again, and it evaded me, and made a comment about it. And I apologize, Caitlin. I did not mean to be a butthole. But anyway, that being said, I don't know why everybody's so excited about this stimulus, because you, the general public, are really not benefiting from this one-time $1,200 payment. Because if you looked at her videos about it, it's benefiting everybody else except you. I mean, if you really looked at it, and it's right here, I wrote it all down, 3 whole pages. I'll go through a few of them. $7.5 million of that goes to the JFK Center for Performing Arts. Okay, why? $75 million respectively goes to the National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for the Humanities, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Why? $50 million of that goes to the Institute for Museums and Libraries. $250 million of that goes to International Disaster Assistance. This might piss you off. $350 million goes to Migration and Refugee Assistance. Why? $88 million goes to the Peace Corps. $1 billion with a B, Amtrak. Why? This is supposed to be a relief bill for the people, not for giant corporations that should have been planning for this. Only 2 parts of this bill I somewhat agree with. Helping the little people and the little people that start small businesses, and maybe the Native Americans that get $3 billion, because we've been fucking them for years, since we took the land from them when we started this country. Let's see. Okay. $30 billion goes to the Department of Education. Is that $30 billion going to improve the education system? Maybe, maybe not. $10 billion goes to the FAA. Now, does that include the $58 billion the airlines are getting? How about $250 million the IRS gets? Oh, and what about this one? $400 million in Election Assistance Commission? What is that about? $200 million to the Federal Communications Commission? I thought the government wasn't supposed to benefit from emergency relief. Okay, how about the $275 million for the Federal Building Fund? What, are the buildings starting to fall apart all of a sudden? Or 178 million to the Department of Homeland Security. Well, so government needs to be paid, right? Yeah. $100 million to the TSA, the most useless government agency known to man, who missed 95% of forbidden items in airports. 345 million to the Department of Labor, 425 million to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 324 million Department of State. Why? So they cannot render assistance to embassies? Clinton, remember that? How about 300 million to the Social Security Administration? So they can take Social Security disability from people like me. Oh yeah. They stopped my disability insurance payments last month. Or this month rather. Okay. How about 99.5 million to the Department of Energy? 34 million to the Department of Forest Services. Oh, 25 million to the House of Representatives. Hey, Crypt Keeper. You know who I'm talking about, David Lopan. Thanks, Jericho. I call her Crypt Keeper. Did you, by any chance, vote Congress a pay raise too, or a bonus, or just yourselves? 850 million to state and local law enforcement who aren't going to come to assault calls or breaking and entering calls. Yeah, they need that. 12.5 million to the Department of Interior. What the hell do they do? And 60 million to NASA. And the sheeple are jazzed about $1,200. Okay, well, people, you got to wake up, man. The government, the Democrats are not on your side. This is what Pelosi and the House Democrats held up the vote for 2 weeks or whatever they did. Held it up so they could get this shit passed. This is what they did. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. This is what they want. They want you dependent on them. That's why they're rationing all this stuff. Really, a run on toilet paper? What's that? Come on. You've seen all these videos of hospitals that are overrun. I got a friend out in the central states who's an RN. She's worried about getting laid off. Her friends have been getting laid off from hospitals because of this sickness that's been going around. That Elf Fucci or Fauci or whatever the fuck his name is. That little Keebler elf that needs to be up in a tree baking cookies somewhere. That stands by President Trump on the podium. Standing on his little soapbox so the press can see him. You know, he wrote a paper to the New England Journal of Medicine, February 28th, 2020, where he admitted that the sickness had a mortality rate of 0.1%. 0.01? 0.01%. No more than that of a seasonal flu. And now all of a sudden it's the scourge of the modern world? You shut down a country? You cripple an economy? I mean, come on. I'm not I don't ever claim to be the smartest man in the world, but what's going on? Is it that deep state thing? The elites trying to get their way? Is it like the world's biggest pyramid scheme? Every pyramid has a foundation, and usually the foundation is built on the backs of slaves. And if that's what you're thinking we are, I got news for you. When the foundation cracks, the whole thing comes down. We're not stupid, people. Maybe some of you are. But you need to wake up. Admiral Yamamoto, 1941. Something like that. The only reason he stopped at Pearl Harbor, because he knew there were so many guns in this country. Behind every blade of grass, there's a gun. You might have bigger guns. Well, we have more guns. And slowly but surely, we're getting more numbers. I'm not in any way condoning violence. But you can only beat a dog so many times before he turns around and bites your fucking hand off. I, for one, would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And do I look like a person that lives on his knees? I gave this country 28 years of my life, honorably discharged under medical conditions. My fight's not over. Is yours? Hang tough, America. See ya.